everyone, my name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Hi, hello. Welcome to a little combination of my June wrap up and like a mid-year freak out award ceremony thing. I'm doing this Frankenstein style. I just wanted to do a little bit of a twist in the regular wrap ups. Yesterday, from when I'm filming this, so Wednesday for you guys, I ended up uploading a TikTok that I had just filmed, which was a buy it, borrow it, or avoid it for my June wrap up. So you can see kind of a snapshot of what I did read in June in that video and kind of my general opinions on them. Today, I figured we'd start out this video with kind of like a rapid fire situation for my wrap up for the 14 books and the 5 books that I DNF'd in June, and then I'm gonna do like a book awards type mid-year wrap-up stats type thing. So let's get into it. I read 14 books in June plus 5 DNFs. So let's actually start with the DNFs because that's easier. I have them all in a page in my bullet journal. I DNF'd Thieves Gambit by Kavion Lewis because nothing outwardly was bad with it. I DNF'd it about 79 pages in, but I just couldn't care less about what was happening, about the characters, anything. It just, I wasn't having a good time. I was bored, so I DNF'd it. Then I DNF'd 5 Broken Blades by Mike Corlin, which is a Red Tower book, which should have been my first red flag. And it was written with like 5 or 6 POVs. I can't really remember. Every single one of them was in first person POV, and it's an epic fantasy. So it was so hard to keep the characters straight, and every single one of the character POVs was so broody, so mysterious, so woe is me, and it was boring. Literally nothing was happening. I DNF'd it at 120 pages in. Then we have My Government Means to Kill Me by Rashid Newson. This one, again, nothing against the book. I think it's quite a good book. It just wasn't for me. It's not my genre. It's not really the content that I wanted to be reading. It is a very sex-forward story, not in the way of like a romance book sex-forward would be, but it is a story about a young Black man who is a sex worker, a queer sex worker, and it's a historical fiction of that kind of style. And when I was reading it, I knew that I was going to be giving it like a 2.5, 3 star within the first 35% of it. And I was like, I just don't want to be reading this right now. It wasn't the content that I wanted to be reading. It was kind of depressing. And I had seen so many cock and balls on my fucking pages. It's not for me. That is nothing to say against this book. If you love that genre, if you love literary fiction, pick this up. And then I DNF'd Sons of Darkness by Gaurav Mohanty. This one I DNF'd, I don't even know how many pages in. It was within the first like 30 pages or 50 pages. Because immediately I knew it was going to be this branch of fantasy that I like to call dude bro fantasy that doesn't treat women well. I also looked up reviews, and apparently the violence against women just gets worse throughout the entire book, which I'm not here to read. And it's this branch of fantasy that I've read a couple books in this type of fantasy. It's different from old man fantasy, but it's the kind of fantasy that I think dude bros would read. Dude bro. I love reading hard fantasy that's so sad and so dark just for being dark. That kind of fantasy. That just, it's boring. It's boring. So I DNF'd that one. And then finally this month, I also DNF'd Madly Deeply, The Diaries of Alan Rickman, because I picked up the audiobook for it and I immediately was so uncomfy with the fact that, one, I did not know these were published posthumously without his consent or permission. They are literally a private diary. So there is no through line story. There is no biography aspect to this. It is just what he wrote on the page every day of his life or every other day when he diaried about his day. That's it. And then it was not even narrated by him, obviously, because it was published posthumously, or Emma Thompson. Like, I thought they were going to get Emma Thompson to record the foreword because she wrote the foreword for this, but they didn't even get her to do it. I don't know. It just wasn't for me. So I DNF'd that one as well. Anyways, so yes, 14 books. How many 5 stars? 2 5 stars, and both of them were rereads. One of them was my book, A Second Story. I reread that one because I was annotating it for the giveaway that I was running, which, by the way, the giveaway for A Little Luck is still open. If you want an annotated copy of A Little Luck, which means that I have gone through, underlined, I've written notes, I've doodled, I've done a whole bunch of stuff. This is a very bad example because sometimes I go a little hard with the annotations, like doodling and that kind of a thing. Where's my buy flag? There it is. Buy flag. If you want to win this copy, go donate to a family trying to escape Gaza. $5 minimum gets you an entry, and also it's $5 minimum to donate to GoFundMe, and send me proof, and you've entered to win. We are going until I hit $500 raised. We are just over $300 at the moment, and I would love to get another push for this giveaway because it's been kind of stagnant for the past couple weeks. So this is still open, and it's going to be open until we hit that $500 mark. So go and donate. And you're not just gonna get this, you're gonna get a couple other books in this as well, and a couple goodies. It's gonna be wonderful, so definitely go and enter. Anyways, that was why I was reading a second story. Then I also had 2 4.5 stars, I had 4 4 stars, 4 3.5 stars, and 2 3 stars. Nothing below that because I DNF'd everything else. I read 10 fantasy books, 2 thrillers, and 2 romances this month. Well, technically one of the thrillers was like gothic, I guess. Let's just get into it. Let's just get into the rapid fire, my friends. First up was a reread of Relics of Ruin by Eredem Evans. I fucking love this series. I read it for the first time in May, so within a week I reread it, because of course I did. 5 stars. Favorite books of the year. Spoiler for later. And then the next 2 books I read were How to Get a Girlfriend When You Are a Terrifying Monster, and its sequel, How to Get a Date with the Evil Queen. Both of these are by Marie Cardno. They are part of her like little kind of eldritch horror-y series that are little novellas. I read both of them in one night. They were so genuinely delightful. I don't know what I was expecting going in. I think I was expecting more tentacle porn, and I did not get tentacle porn. I got very wholesome, lovely little stories that were perfectly packaged. I gave the first one 4 stars and the second one 3.5. Then I read What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher, and this one really missed the mark for me. The first one in this series duology, I don't know what it's going to end up being, if she's going to write more in this world or not. But the first one, which is What Moves the Dead, was an immediate 5 star. She did so perfectly on that one because it's a wonderful, perfect retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. I loved it. My English major ass ate that up. It was fan-fucking-tastic. So I was so excited about this one, and it really did not hit. I was bored. It didn't really do anything for me. 3 stars. But it does continue the story of Alex Easton after the events of the first book, and it's a little novella, and it's very gothic-y. And this one leans more in the supernatural than the first one did. Then I read the first graphic novel in the Tea Dragon set. This is the Tea Dragon Society, which is a beautiful little sweet, soft, cozy fantasy type of graphic novel, which just makes my heart so happy. This made me cry. It was so cute. And I fucking love it, and I highly recommend if you're in for like just a perfect little treat of wonderfulness, read this. Read it. It's just lovely. It is lovely. 4 stars. Then I read The Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps by Kai Ashante Wilson. This one just didn't quite do it for me. I will say it gives the flavor of The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. I love The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez because of its weird narration and storytelling and like the story that it's weaving, and it's beautiful. But this one had the start of that kind of a flavor to it. It just didn't quite do it for me. It's novella form, so it wasn't like long enough to really sit in it. And a lot of the language used and the words used were very verbose for just the point of kind of being verbose. And it didn't need to be like that the whole way through. And in some of the sentences, I just kept rolling my eyes at it, or I had a hard time actually comprehending what a sentence even meant. So this one didn't quite do it for me, but it was an interesting little snapshot of a flavor like The Spear Cuts Through Water. So if you're at all interested in that, definitely pick it up. It is written by a Black author, and it is very heavily like mythology based. And we follow 2 demigod characters as they're trying to get a troop of men across this road, or like through this one area that is haunted by a beast that just keeps killing people, that kind of thing. And it's gay, so we love that. 3 stars. Then I ended up reading A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faisal, and this one was good. It is definitely a very enjoyable read. When I was reading it, I really enjoyed it, but it just didn't quite stick with me enough. And I find it very forgettable after the fact, but I will say it was beautiful enough and well done enough, and the writing was amazing, that it made me want to give Hafsa Faisal's other duology another try. So definitely recommend if you're at all into any kind of YA book that is definitely very good, leans on a couple tropes, but also does them quite well, and follows 2 characters who are siblings by choice, who are running a tea shop that actually fronts as a blood house in the middle of the night for vampires. And they have to save it by performing a heist. So we love the heist. Cast of ragtag characters, you know, that kind of thing. Interesting and good. It was good. It was solid. I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I picked up How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwong. This was for book club with my friends. We have a weird women book club. So this was a little bit of a wild card for us to pick. I don't really think it fits with the other books that we've read for it, but it was an interesting time and we all had varying responses to this. No one absolutely hated it. Overall, some of us absolutely loved it. Some of us were just mid about it. So I was a mid person about it because the premise of this does not work for me. It just really, I was like annoyed by it because I was just like, no. Like if this is the premise, which is Helen lost her little sister 13 years prior to the start of this book in a suicide. How Helen's sister committed suicide by jumping in front of a car, and the person who was driving that car was Grant, who is the love interest in this. So they're tied together by this tragedy, and they come together 13 years later on Helen's books TV show. They're both in the writer's room and they kind of have this inevitability to come together. There's lots of trauma in this, lots of depression, lots of anxiety, lots of sadness, and the premise didn't work for me. I also don't love reading sad romance books at all. I want to be giggling and kicking my feet when I'm reading a romance book. Personally, that's what I read them for. This one just didn't give me that, but I will say Yulin Kwong really did the daughter of an immigrant family really, really well, and it was interesting to see the inside of a screenwriter's room. So I gave this also 3.5 stars. Then I reread Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is for my series video. I don't know which number I'm on anymore, like 8 or 9 or 7. I don't know. This is for one of those. I reread it so that I could then finish the trilogy, which I'm going to be hopefully doing in July alongside my Friends Pick My TBR, which is like 6,000 pages long. So we'll see how July goes, but this is the plan to do. This was a fantastic reread. I highly recommend this book and the series as a whole because I've heard only wonderful things about it. This is a wonderful, slower setup. So if you love books like Robin Hobb, kind of slow, this is not that slow, but it has the flavor of that really big setup to this absolutely amazing epic story. It is pre-Columbian Americas. We're dealing with like the sun and the crows and a vessel for a god who's been blinded, a woman who can turn into a fish who's also a ship captain, and a priest for the sun. Like, we have a very interesting cast of characters, and I really enjoyed the setup to this, and I'm very excited to keep going. I gave this 4.5 stars upon reread. Then I read an arc on my Kobo. I read The Sky on Fire by Jen Lyons, which I was so thankfully gifted through NetGalley by Tor. I actually got the e-copy and the audio copy, which was just a wonderful coincidence. And I had the best time reading this. You guys are gonna love this. This is a fantastic new dragon book coming out, y'all. It is a ragtag group of people getting together to do a heist where they're trying to steal from a fucking dragon, and a dragon's horde, and this world is governed by dragons, and it's very interesting. I love the world building, I love the characters, and this was so much fun. I highly recommend this, and it comes out July 9th. Then I read Middle of the Night by Riley Sager, which is not his best book, not his worst book. It was very middle of the road for me. I gave it 3.5 stars. Oh, also, The Sky on Fire I gave 4.5 stars. I don't know if I said that. This one was just fine for me. It kind of shit the bed on the ending. The first half was quite good and very interesting to me, but it went places where I just didn't really feel like it should have gone. It included tropes that I didn't really love, and the ending just fizzled. It didn't do the Riley Sager twists at the end that you kind of expect. He kind of just shit the bed on the twists. He didn't really do enough of them, which is so funny because his previous book, The One and Only or whatever, the Lizzie Borden-esque book, which I fucking loved, it was so drama. The ending was absolutely bad shit because he just threw all his twists at it. So maybe he ran out of twists for this book because this one was just kind of But yeah, 3.5 stars. This follows Ethan Marsh. He is now 40 and he has returned home to live in his childhood home around the 30-year anniversary of this event that changed his life when he was 10. When he was 10 years old, he was camping in the backyard with his best friend, and he woke up the next morning to find the tent slashed and his best friend missing, and Billy has never been found in 30 years. He moves back to this childhood home that he's in. He's battling insomnia. He's battling all these traumas from that night. He senses Billy is back. Then I read Iris Kelly Does a Date by Ashley Herring Blake. This was genuinely such a lovely, lovely little romance. It had all of the tropes that I really, really enjoy. It's fake dating. It's a one-night stand gone wrong. It's also, it has a wonderful twist on like the sex lessons trope as well. I think it was fantastically done. It's very sex positive, very good representation as well for bisexuality and also for anxiety, because our character here, Stevie, has generalized anxiety disorder. And it's just, it was so great and so perfect for summer, and I really loved this. I give this 4 stars. With a caveat that I think it's probably going to be a 4.5 or a 5, because I need to reread this. I was reading it around my parents when I first read this, and trying to read a romance book around your parents is not the vibe. I didn't let myself sink into the story enough, so I need to reread this sink into it, really feel the vibes. And I think I'll absolutely, this is like one of my favorites. It was just really good. And finally, I ended the month with Blood Over Brighthaven by Emma Wong. Actually, I started this back in May, so it's been like a full month-long read for me because there's no audiobook for this. But this is an indie pub book that has been picked up traditionally, and I think it's coming out in October. So definitely check it out. Very dark academia, and I did enjoy it. I give it 4 stars. I went in with higher expectations because I absolutely loved Emma Wong's sort of Kaigen. This one didn't hit for me, and I think that's just because of the genre. It's very well written, very well characterized. The world building is really, really interesting, and I really enjoyed the setting and the story and the reveals and the conversations happening in this book, but it is so heavily academic, all right? Like, if you found Babel a lot, you're not gonna like this, because this was even more academic heavy than Babel. Like, the amount of conversations that our main characters are having on page about magic and the functionality of magic and how things work and how things are supposed to work or could work or whatever is unreal. It is important to the plot, but it's a lot. And I found myself skimming some of those moments because it was like, I don't know what's happening. It's very sciencey, jargony for my brain. Not my thing. But anyways, this was 4.5. This was 4 stars. I did enjoy it, and I think it's quite good. And the hype it's getting on the internet is warranted. All right, so that is the wrap up part of this. I think I did that rapid fire enough. Let's get into the book awards part of this, which I think should be kind of fun. I pulled a couple questions off the internet from some people's TikTok videos where they did like end of year book awards and also the mid-year book freakout tag. And I created my own list of questions because sometimes the mid-year book freakout tag just doesn't work. Like, there's some questions in there that I'm like, I don't fucking know. Let's get into this. And I'm gonna try to pick different books for everything, because as I was writing these questions down, I was sitting there going, wow, I could use the same book for 10 of these. So I'm gonna try and mix it up. I'm gonna try not use the books more than twice, because there's a couple in here that I like definitely need to use it for. You probably already know which ones I'm talking about, don't you? So we're gonna just start off with best start to a series that I started this year so far. Now I'm gonna open up my call pile just because I want to be able to see what series I have started this year, because you guys know very fucking well how many series I have started in my lifetime. And there's a lot of them this year, let me tell you. So let me find it, okay. I think I have 4 choices for this. Maybe 5. Maybe 5. But, okay, first up we have The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. This was a phenomenal start to a book. I fucking love this book so much. N.K. Jemisin can do no wrong. I love her books no matter what, even though the sequel to this was a very big disappointment and really didn't work for me. But this book, phenomenal. So good. And then I also have The Surviving Sky by Kritika Rao. This one I gave 4.5 stars earlier this year, but it just shocked me and stunned me in the most beautiful way. The world building was so lush and reminded me of N.K. Jemisin's other series, the Broken Earth trilogy. It was just so delicious and so good. And I had such a good time with this story. Even though it is not like super action-packed or anything, like the world and the characters were enough, even though the action was not super high. Like, it was just worked, and it was so neat. It was unlike anything I've ever read. It was so good. And then I have 2 of James Islington's start to his series, because I think that both of these were absolutely fantastic. This one here, The Shadow of What Was Lost, was 5 stars when I read it. It is stunning and amazing. It is a start to his Lycanius trilogy, which is a big epic fantasy in the realm of Wheel of Time that works with like time travel and stuff like that. And then The Will of the Many is a very interesting, more scholarly type of book that I don't know where the fuck this is going. And I'm so excited to see where it goes. Like, these are just both really, really good. And James Islington is a fantastic storyteller. And for sci-fi, I'll mention one more. We have The Blighted Stars by Megan E. O'Keefe. This one was so good. Definitely such a fun, interesting, action-packed sci-fi that is very mixed with horror elements and survival elements. I really enjoyed this, and the romance in here was wonderful. And I'm excited to keep going, even though I keep hearing everyone on the internet, it does not like the sequels. So book 1 was fantastic, but we'll see how it goes from here. Speaking of sequels, the next question is the best sequel I've read so far this year. Now, that's a great question, because have I read many sequels? No. So I was going to say, you know which one I was going to say, Relics of Ruin. But because I want to keep those special and safe, I think I am going to say the best sequel that I've read so far this year is Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands by Heather Fawcett. This was genuinely such a lovely time. I liked this book, which is book 2 to the Emily Wilde series, so much more than I liked book 1, which I think was just the mood that I was in when I was reading book 1. I need to reread it to just double check, but this one worked so well for me. I loved the characters, loved the banter, loved the world that we were exploring in this one. Stunning and amazing. I highly recommend this series. It's so fun. Then, of course, we have to ask the best book that I've read so far this year. And I have 2 of my favorite books. As you guys well know, what happened to Relics of Ruin? Here it is. My babies, I can't pick between these 2. Don't make me pick. They're so fucking good. All right, this is Empire of Exiles by Erin M. Evans and its sequel, Relics of Ruin. These books, I have never fallen in love with a book so fast. And I have also never actually reread a book within a week of reading said book in my life. And I did that with both of these. Within 6 days for Empire of Exiles, within about a week for Relics of Ruin as well. Like, I just had to. I was thinking about the world, thinking about the books, thinking about my beautiful characters. Everything about these books is so phenomenal. They're both fantasy mysteries. So this first one is a pseudo-locked room mystery that deals with like memory type magic and a wonderful cast of characters. And then that cast of characters in this book finds a skeleton where there should not be a skeleton. So it's fun. These books feel so fucking real to me. I don't even know how to explain it. And I have also reread Empire of Exiles for the purpose of studying how Erin M. Evans maps out a fantasy mystery to write my own fantasy mystery. So just everything about these books. These are the best that I've read so far this year. If something is going to surpass these 2, it's going to have to floor me because I don't foresee that happening. I really don't. The next question is the best book that I've read that is outside my favorite genre, which is fantasy. And in this, I'm also going to include sci-fi. So outside of fantasy and sci-fi, what is the best book I've read so far this year? So that is a great question. That was probably a really stupid question to ask myself because literally everything I've read is fantasy or sci-fi, except for like a couple of them. And they all didn't really quite work for me, but okay, we will say Iris Kelly Doesn't Date, which I mentioned earlier. I think that's the best book that is outside my regular genre that I've read so far this year. Because that one it was so cute. I loved it so much. It was great. Next up, we have what is the book that surprised me the most so far this year. And I'm going to have to say The Poisons We Drink by Bethany Baptiste. Because I went into this knowing it was marketed with YA. And YA doesn't usually work for me. So I went into it with really low expectations. And I came out fucking loving this. It reads like an adult book. And it was constructed like an adult book. And it just was so fucking well done. I think about it regularly, this book. It is so phenomenal. Definitely pick this up. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. Then we have the most disappointing read of the year so far. I think this doesn't really equate with like the worst book I've read so far this year, but I have 2 answers for this. One of them ended up being a 3-star, very middle of the road. And one of them ended up being like a 1.5 star. So the 3-star was the M.K. Jemisin, The Broken Kingdoms, because the first book is a 5-star, amazing, blew me away. And this one just missed for me. I don't know what it was because it was a very interesting story. The characters were fun. Nothing clicked for me. So probably this one. Oh, also, I forgot that I read this one this year. Maybe even Where Peace is Lost. Like these both left me with the same taste in my mouth where I was like expecting more. And every so often I would almost be hooked into the story, but it just didn't get me ever. It just never followed through. And both of these ended up getting like 3 or 3.5 stars. They were very middle of the road for me when I was expecting so much more. So these are definitely disappointing. And then the 1.5 star is So Let Them Burn, the dragon cover. I was disappointed in this one because it was so beautiful and it fucking was bad. I guess in that same sense, we could definitely go toward the worst book that I've read so far this year. And besides So Let Them Burn, the worst book that I've actually finished this year, which I should have DNF'd, I'll probably say The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw. This one was verbose for no fucking reason. And girly could have just, no. No, this was bad. Don't read this. The best reread so far of this year. So as you guys know, I love to reread things. I have a shelf in my bullet journal here that is all the rereads that I've done so far this year in Q1 and Q2. And I think the best reread for me was probably Black Sun because it raised the book in rating for me. I had such a great time with it. It was originally 4 stars when I read it for the first time, but now it's a 4.5 star. Like, it just became so much better, and I can see what it's doing to set up for the whole series. So definitely Black Sun. So the next one is, what is my favorite new to me author of this year? Other than Erin M. Evans, who is my favorite author ever now, we have Kritika Rao, I think, is probably going to take the cake for this one because of the way that she just knitted this world together. And I've only read one of her books so far, so we'll see how she continues with the stories after this, but definitely this one. And I will have to also say James Islington, because the way he crafts stories is so phenomenal. I love the way he storytells. So those 3, Erin M. Evans, Kritika Rao, and James Islington. And then the best author of the year will go to Erin M. Evans. Hands down. A new release that I haven't yet read from this half of the year, there's a bunch of them, but I think the one that I'm most excited to read, I have a bunch of them. I am probably most excited to read Mirrored Heavens by Rebecca Roanhorse, and also Pillar of Ash, which came out literally in January, which is by Hannah Long, one of my favorite authors. Haven't yet read it, haven't gotten around to it, but it's on my list for July, so that's okay. I'll get around to it then. Pillar of Ash, definitely so excited about, and also Mirrored Heavens. And that leads me into a new release you're most excited for in the second half of the year, and that is definitely Black Tide Sun by Hannah Long, which is the sequel to Dark Water Daughter, which came out last year and was my favorite book of the year. I am so fucking excited for this sequel, y'all have no idea. I do have an arc of it, but like, I just have so many things I need to read. So definitely Black Tide Sun. And also, I will probably say Fury of the Gods by John Gwynne. I'm so excited about this one. It's the 3rd and final book in the Bloodsworn trilogy of his. And then finally, The Lotus Empire, which is the 3rd and final book in the Jasmine Throne series. I fucking love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. The next one is new favorite character. And I picked this one specifically instead of the new fictional crush because it is very hard for me to find a fictional crush, to be honest with you, because they have to be better than Gideon from Gideon the Ninth. And that is just not a thing. Gideon the Ninth is my girl. So it's very hard to beat her. And most of the time I just don't think of that when I'm thinking of books. But I did pick best favorite character, or like new favorite character, and that has to be Tanook from these books. Specifically Relics of Ruin, because Tanook in Relics of Ruin, my sassy emo man, my sassy emo shadow man. Oh my god. His humor is so dry. I love it so fucking much. He just makes my heart so happy. So Tanook from Relics of Ruin is my favorite character of this year so far. The next one is most beautiful book that I have bought this year, which is a great question. I mean, I held up one earlier that is quite stunning, which is this Fairy Loot edition of A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faisal. I got this off of Facebook Marketplace, which is fun and exciting because this is just gorgeous. This one for sure is up there. And then I think also, I got one today actually, which is kind of cheating. That is also another special edition that is absolutely stunning. It's The Garden of the Cursed by Katie Rosepool, again off of Facebook Marketplace. I think it's beautiful and stunning, and it has one of those like reversible dust jackets. I think those are the ones that kind of work for that question. Those two specifically. And the last question is, what books do I need to read before the end of 2024? Other than my regular reading plans, which I have an entire TBR set up for July, which is my Friends Pick My TBR. And I've also set up that I'm doing the Black Sun, the Between Earth and Sky trilogy. I'm doing a series video for that, so definitely that one as well. Other than those, I have 2 bingo boards in my bullet journal that I would love to try and actually read through. So off of the 24 and 24 bingo board that I have here that I picked, I would love to read The Goblin Emperor by Catherine something or other. Catherine Addison, I think her name is. Definitely that one, because then it would give me a bingo across this with reading Rubicon and Jonathan Strange. Other than that, I would really also love to read A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. I have this one as well, which is the 12 friends recommended, or the picks that my friends picked me. And I would love to read all of these so that I can actually have this completed. So we have Elsewhere, A Secret History of Witches, The Midnight Kingdom, Iron Gold, A Day of Fallen Night, The Cruel Stars, Paladin's Grace, Stone Blind, and The First Binding that I need to read still. All of these. Those are definitely the ones I would love to read by the end of the year, and I just have, as you guys know, so many books that are always on the go, on the radar, everything. Let me know down below your favorite sequel that you've read this year, and also your new favorite author that you've read this year. Those are the two questions I'm going to ask you guys specifically, and I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. Any thoughts that you have on the books that I picked so far this year. But yeah, I guess I'll also do some stats for this mid-year since we're here. So far in 2024, I have read 70 books. In total, I have read 24,570 pages. I have listened to 263 hours of audiobooks. I have an average rating of 3.75, which is usually much higher than that at this point in time, but those low rating ones just got me this year. And the most read authors I have is Erin Evans, Robert Jackson Bennett, N.K. Jemisin, Christopher Paolini, and Katie Rose Poole. The top 5 books that I've read so far this year are Empire of Exiles, Relics of Ruin, Chain Gang All-Stars, 100,000 Kingdoms, and also The Shadow of What Was Lost. So those are there. I've read 41 fantasy books, as you can tell by my pie chart. It's the biggest section. I've read 2 nonfictions, 3 graphic novels, 3 romances, 5 thriller horror books, and 5 literary fiction books. And that, so far, is my 2024. So, amazing. We are well on track for hitting my goal of reading 120 books this year. And I think we're doing pretty great otherwise. Yes, my friends, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I love you guys so very deeply, and I'll catch you in another video very soon. Stay kind and keep on reading.